Hello everyone, my name's Ivan Carter and I am the Community Engagement Officer at the Victorian Serrated Tussock Working Party, and I'd like to run you through a presentation that we've developed which gives you an overview about serrated tussock and a bit about the Victorian Serrated Tussock Working Party, which I will refer to now as the VSTWP. A bit about who we are. So the VSTWP is a not-for-profit incorporated community group. So that means that we have a committee of management which are volunteers from the community that are also our community representatives. So we meet 4 times a year and we receive some funding from Agriculture Victoria or the state government, and we report to the Secretary of Agriculture Victoria. Now, we're the lead organisation for serrated tussock management in Victoria. We run extension programs and education programs. We attend events. We have TV commercials and media. And we basically try and educate the community about how to manage serrated tussock and how to prevent its spread. A bit about how we go about our work. The primary function that we do is we deliver extension programs on a one-to-one basis to our landowners across Victoria. Now, the way we do that is we do that in targeted areas. So we'll choose a few areas each year, which will be a few hundred properties each, and we'll launch it with a field day where we invite all the landowners to come along and hear about serrated tussock control, how to identify the plant, how to control the plant, and some of the services that we'll be offering over the next 12 months. Now, the extension officers that we contract will go out to these landowners on a one-to-one basis. We'll go from door to door and we'll go for a walk over the farms and over the properties with the landowners, and we can show them how to identify the plants, and then we can come up with a management plan if there's any plants to treat. And we can also answer questions along the way. Now, this approach has worked really well for us because it's a one-to-one form of extension where people seem to respond very well to it. We have a really high level of compliance, and that's a voluntary compliance project, and we have around 98 to 99% compliance, which is really healthy. Now, the 3 areas that we're working on at the moment are around we've got a targeted program around Romsey, Balan, down at Inverleigh, and we've got one that's also still going at Monagita. Now, these programs usually are 2 years, and the first year we do extension for all landowners, and then the second year we go back and visit just some of the ones that need a bit more help. Now, where is serrated tussock in Victoria? Well, we've got about 250,000 hectares unfortunately infested with serrated tussock. As you can see from the map on the screen, it's mostly within a 50k radius to the north and to the west of Melbourne. Those areas include Bacchus Marsh, Werribee, Geelong, Bulla, Hume. Those kind of areas is where it's the most dense, unfortunately. And then if you look at the map, you can see some sites that are further out. So they're on the arterial roads mostly, towards Gisborne and out towards Inverleigh, towards Ballarat and Bendigo. And then you've got a few isolated, what we call isolated core sites. So you've got a site at Hamilton, which is quite large, and you've got one out at Gippsland, which is around Bairnsdale and Maffra, and you've got some up in the northeast around Rutherglen. So yeah, unfortunately it has spread quite a distance from what was the core, but we are managing those smaller sites that are further out with the aim of eradication. Now, in terms of a bit about the biology of serrated tussock, I'm going to give you an overview about the plant and how to identify it, and some of the features to distinguish. But as you can see from the paddock there in the picture, it can dominate if you don't get on top of it. Now, that's a site where there was not much competition. It was during the drought, it was overgrazed, and unfortunately serrated tussock just took over and it's been left there. Now, you've almost got 90% cover there, and it's not palatable to stock. So stock won't graze on it. So that is a fairly useless paddock there. A bit about the history. Serrated tussock was introduced in the 1900s as an ornamental plant and also to stop erosion in certain sites. It came from South America, so it's from Argentina and Chile. And it was first noticed to have spread in the 1950s, and we've now got 250,000 hectares across Victoria. Now, it was one of the weeds of national significance, and it is probably one of the worst invasive species in Australia, and it costs a lot of money each year to treat and prevent the further spread. In terms of identification, it's quite tricky to distinguish from some of the other grasses, particularly the native tussock, which I'll talk about a bit further on. It's got a serrated leaf surface, so if you run your hand from the top of the plant down to the bottom, you'll feel some sharp little serrations there. And you can see the seeds are a bright purple, and they will cover the plant like a purple hue in the late spring time of the year and early summer. Now, the distinguishing feature that I use is the leaves are perfectly round like a needle. They're rolled very tightly. They're not a flat blade of grass. So you can run your thumb and forefinger across the leaf and it will roll perfectly there. Now, here's some of the lookalike grasses that I've picked out for you. So you can see the serrated tussock on the left of the screen, and you can see the native tussock, which is the closest lookalike, but you can see the cross section of the leaf is very different. It's a C-section or a flat blade of grass in the native tussock, and the same in the wallaby grass and the spear grass, which are beside it. But from a distance, if you just look at the photos up the top, the serrated tussock and the native tussock are quite similar, and the wallaby grass and the spear grass probably look a bit sparser and a little bit different. In terms of the life cycle of serrated tussock, it produces over 100,000 seeds per plant per year. So you can imagine the seed bank that gets out if you don't treat plants before seeding, and those seeds stay viable up to 10 years, which is a bit shorter than gauze, which is 30 years, but it's still quite a while. The seeds are mostly spread in stock and fodder and machinery, but they also blow in the wind up to 20 kilometres, so that's quite a long distance. Now, in terms of the chance of fodder of stock eating serrated tussock are quite low, but if they do, particularly goats do eat it, it can stay in the stomach of the stock for up to 9 days, and it can germinate all year round, which is unfortunate because it will mostly germinate in spring and summer, but you can get it also in autumn if you get the rains in autumn, and also in late summer when you get those summer storms. Now, it's not very competitive. That's the good news about serrated tussock. If you have good ground cover, good pasture management, good grazing management, you can certainly slow down the spread of serrated tussock because it spreads via sheer numbers of the seeds. Now, in terms of the present distribution and the potential distribution, a while ago the Department of Ag did a bit of modelling, and they looked at where serrated tussock was and where it was suited to spread to. Now, the bad news is that most of southern Victoria and central Victoria is well suited to serrated tussock, as you can see from the picture. So we currently have only a core dense infestation around the fringes of Melbourne, and the rest of Victoria is quite manageable. But if you look at the potential distribution, all of the southwest and the west of Victoria and Gippsland and all the way up to Bendigo is quite susceptible to further spread of serrated tussock, and pretty much all of the northeast as well. The only areas where serrated tussock would not be suited to is the Mallee, where it's too dry, and the northern Wimmera. So that's not good news really, but it is good that we don't have too many sites up around those areas, and most of those sites are being managed for eradication. The impacts serrated tussock can have on the landscape and the bottom line of farming productivity can be quite high. In terms of the economic impacts, it's not palatable to stock, so that results in lower yields in each paddock, less number of stock per hectare, and lower productivity of the farm. Now, there's no food value in serrated tussock. It's pretty much all fibre and very low protein. So stock won't eat it. The only things that would eat it is camels and goats, and only if they have to. It certainly outcompetes some of the pasture species that are especially noticeable during high stocking rates. So if you stock quite high going into summer and autumn, then you're going to eat out your paddocks, and then you're going to get serrated tussock and other weeds in those spaces. And it can be quite costly to treat serrated tussock. The herbicide, particularly flupropionate, is about $600 for 20 litres. Then you've got your time, then you've got your surveillance, and it can cost quite a lot. So the economic costs are very high, as well as the environmental costs, which serrated tussock has taken over quite a lot of native grasslands to the north and west of Melbourne and out in the volcanic plains. Now, the problem with this is that grasslands are our most threatened EVC, or ecological vegetation classification, in the country. So there was only around 1 to 2% of grassland still remaining in Victoria, and serrated tussock and Chilean needlegrass are two of the grasses that certainly the most likely species to threaten these grasslands. And they can outcompete some of the native species. They're a high fire risk, and if you get any disturbance, they're the first plants to usually come in. So that's another unfortunate problem serrated tussock can cause. In terms of serrated tussock control options, there's a range of methods that are available for controlling serrated tussock. Obviously, manual removal is quite a useful one. You can use a mattock or a shovel. If you haven't got too many plants, you can just dig them over and shake out the soil, and they can be disposed of in a double garbage bag or turned upside down if there's no seeds on them. You can use cultivation, so turning over your paddocks and re-sowing with crops or with pasture improvement. It's an effective technique. Boom spraying can be used with a selective herbicide, or spot spraying can be used as well with a registered herbicide. There are two registered herbicides for serrated tussock. You've got glyphosate, which is the non-selective Roundup product, or you can use flupropionate, which is a selective herbicide that is targeted at serrated tussock and Chilean needlegrass, and it's pretty good at not killing most of the other pasture grasses. There's a few that are susceptible, and you should always follow the labels on the products. Now, in terms of flupropionate, the selective herbicide, it's a residual herbicide, so it can stay in the soil for up to 2 years, and it can be bought in a spray or in granules, and it needs a bit of moisture to activate it. So it's best to use that one in spring or during winter to ensure there's enough moisture in the soil to activate it, and then it will work for up to 2 years. In terms of prevention of spread, prevention of spread is certainly the most cost-effective control method. What I'm talking about there is preventing infestations from known sites going into infestations or sites that have no known infestations. So you should be aware of when you move stock or fodder or machinery from areas that have infested sites. Be very aware if you're moving those into new paddocks that you will spread the serrated tussock with it, because stock can have the seeds on them, or fodder can have viable seeds, and machinery can get mud and dirt and seeds in that as well. We do have a vehicle hygiene brochure which tells you about how to clean your machinery and your vehicle down if you've been in infested areas. And it's probably worth noting as well that shelter belts are a great way to prevent the spread between paddocks, because they can form a dense thicket of vegetation, And serrated tussock spreads in the wind mostly, so the shelter belts are very good at preventing that spread. Now, in terms of the difficulty of ID, I talked about this before, but if you look at the two photos there, one is serrated tussock on the left and one is native tussock on the right. And from a distance, they look quite similar. Now, if you're not sure about it, you're always welcome to ask the working party, or you can make contact with myself. You can send through photographs or videos, and I can help with ID. And we've also got identification brochures that I'll be happy to mail out to anyone that was interested. And if in doubt, ask an expert, because there are heavy fines for destroying native grasslands and species. Now, in terms of resources, we've got loads on our website. It's serratedtussock.com. We've got case studies, we've got videos, we've got identification sheets, we've got our newsletter, all the sorts of stuff that you'd want to know about serrated tussock are there. Please subscribe to our quarterly newsletter. It's called the Tussock Times. If you're interested in what herbicides are registered for serrated tussock and what the holding periods are, if you're spraying those around stock, then you can go to the APVMA website, which is a federal government website that's got all the registered herbicides for all of the invasive species. And please, just feel free to browse across our social media and our YouTube channel and stay in touch. Thanks for your time and speak soon. Bye. I'll leave you with a final slide, which is a photo point from a large farm near Berlin during the 1990s. Is the photograph on the left, and a photograph taken a few years ago, I think 2017, is the same paddock after years of aerial spraying and pasture improvement and grazing management. They've managed to get the density from close to 100% down to 1 or 2%. That just requires a bit of surveillance and a few spot sprays each year. Now, if you do have any questions, please get in touch with the VSTWP through our website, serratedtussock.com, or you can email us, info@serratedtussock.com. Thanks for your attention. Speak soon.